What's up, YouTube? Hi, JujuGU here, and today we'll be covering the balance update that just happened on March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Wearing some green here, which is nice. Yeah, I pretty much just got up, made myself some coffee and some breakfast, walked my dog, and then noticed that a balance update was here, so here I am filming. But this one's a little spicy, not gonna lie. I'm super excited to go over all these changes. Of course, I'm pretty sure that as the metagame evolves and more iterations continue, we're going to see more balance updates like these. The core set refresh has released a ton of strong cards, and when a ton of strong cards enter the metagame and nerfs happen or buffs happen, it shakes up the metagame even more. So expect to see more of these balance changes in the weeks to come. The market's going to be a little bit more volatile at that point because of all the little shakeups. So if you're investing, this is not financial advice, but if you're like buying cards, just be aware that anything can happen at this point in the game, right? You can buy like a really expensive card, it could get nerfed to the ground, and you'll be stuck with like a card that costs maybe like 5 to 10 cents. So be careful out there, everyone. On the flip side, this is an opportunity to, I don't know, like invest in cards that you think might not get nerfed and might be really strong in the future. You can lose a lot of money in this time, but you can also gain a lot of money. Or not money. ETH? Current crypto? Whatever works. Anyways, that's not why we're here though. We're talking about the balance update, and let's get started with that. So first up, shout out to I'm Bryn, the director or game dev. Really appreciate how personalized these balance updates are. I think that says a lot for the game devs to be able to do that. Also, the fact that we have game devs communicating as much as possible via Discord, via Twitter, via Reddit, via blogs like this, it says a lot about the game. So shout outs to the devs for doing that. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the community does too. Okay, cool. So core set refresh cards are pretty strong, hey? Too strong in some cases. We've got a bevy of nerfs in this patch, as the first set of changes to this set are intended to directly address the overbearing dominance of the card draw magic decks, which, as the name suggests, focuses on drawing cards to control the board. But there's light at the end of the tunnel, as we also want to bring the golden domain up to par. Outside of this, we probably change a few cards that were likely to cause trouble in a less magic-dominated landscape. Okay, cool. So a couple things to think about here. They're very focused on limiting card magic draw decks. That says a lot about the metagame so far. However, if you look at the top decks, I think most of the decks didn't even use any core set refresh cards. So this might be a little premature, but honestly, it's better to like be preemptive about this kind of stuff than to not be preemptive and to be reactive. So that's fine. I really appreciate that. Card draw magic has been very OP in the future, and it's still pretty OP. And because the metagame hasn't been found yet, people are still getting their core set refresh cards. It's most likely going to be dominant until these nerfs happen. So great job, devs. Keep nerfing magic. Don't nerf it too much, though, because that is my favorite god class. Anyways, my second favorite god class is light, though. So I'm very excited that they're buffing a lot of light cards. I think light might be very, very good. And also, light is a natural counter to magic. The reason why it's a natural counter to magic is a lot of the cards in light have ward. And with magic in particular, ward is pretty much a nuisance because they rely on their removal, right? Whether that be, their Star Shard Bolt, their God Power, Form of Power, Ancient Text, anything. They rely on their spells for removal, and ward just makes it really complicated for them to use their spells. So with the buffs to light, that'll in turn nerf magic down a little bit more as well. Let's go into the cards. So Vexing Vicar, doesn't matter. Strength increase. Change stats from 0-1 to 1-1. So Vexing Vicar is the frontline ward protected. Yeah. This card is very good. Do you remember that 1/1 magic card with Warden protected from, I think it's called Shadow Scryer from Magic? Yeah. This card is a better version of Shadow Scryer. Don't believe me? Well, Shadow Scryer can't get buffed by things. In a class like Light, where this card has less than 1 strength, it's gonna get buffed. Yeah, for sure. And it's a Mystic, so there's definitely some synergy there with Frumentary Researcher. Yeah, look up that card, Frumentary Researcher, if you're new to the channel and you haven't been paying attention to the market watches, because I have been highlighting that card for a while. And this is one of the reasons why I think Zoo Light is going to be extremely good in these next coming weeks until it gets nerfed or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's super powerful. Zoo Light is being slept on. Watch out for this card because this card is going to be a staple in Zoo Light. Cool. Moving on. We have Shield Bearer. Change stats from 0/1 to 1/1. So this is going to be pre-nerf Shield Bearer. Shield Bearer a couple months back was nerfed to 0/1 because it was a neutral card, but now that it's a class-specific card, it can go back to this 1/1 thing. I like the stat line. It's pretty much just a 1 mana 2/2, but you give 1/1 to anything, right? So instead of it being you can give it to a Empyrean Pacifist to make it a 1 mana 2/3 because it gets the extra buff for health because you summon a Shield Bearer. You can add it to, oh my god, there's so many things. You can add it to the Vexing Vicar, right? You can add it to so many things. So this buff is really flexible and it's really powerful as a 1/1 card. This card was before pre-buff or pre-nerf Shield Bearer when it was neutral. It worked really well with aggro war. So expect to see this card in iterations of Zoo Light as well. I think it's a very strong card. Heck, we can even run like a super hyper aggro face Zoo Light if this becomes a thing. Yeah, it's an Olympian, which kind of sucks. I'd prefer it to be a Mystic, but hey, you can't have it all. Olympians do have synergy with the Light class. There are some broken things that you can do with Olympians, but man, if this was a Mystic, Frumentary Researcher would be so good. I mean, it's already so good, but you get the deal, right? So Shield Bearer happens, the buff happens. It's pretty good. Next up, we have Aging Veteran. This one caught me by surprise, but it also just made me think Zoo Light's gonna be really good too. So change mana cost from 2 to 1, so they reduce the mana cost, and this card is kind of good. It's a 1 mana 0/3. At the end of your turn, if this creature has 3 or more health, gain 1 strength. So you play this on turn 1, it's a 1/3, right? You play this on turn 2, it's a 2, or play this on turn 1, it's a 1/3. If it survives, it's a 2/3, and so on and so forth. So it gets more value as it survives. And 1/3 is a good stat line, or 3 health is a good stat line, right? Because it survives Vanguard Axwoman, it survives Ancient Text, it survives Form of Power, unbuffed with Spell Boost, of course, but you get the gist, right? And they'll have to spend something that's more than 1 mana to destroy this card, unless it's Amazons and they have the 1 mana spell that deals 3 when you have an Amazon, but I digress. Anyways, this card is very good contender as well. Like, all these 1-drops just totally buff Zoo Light. You know what I mean? Because now you can play Empyrean Pacifist, Vexing Vicar for a 1/1 ward with Frontline and a 1/2 that can just keep going. You can play Shield Bearer, you can play Aging Veteran, and then you have stuff like Asterius, you have, the typical Zoo Light buff cards, Radiant Dawn, you have Prayer of the Desperate, even though it got nerfed because they made it to 4 to 5 mana. Spoiler alert. But anyways, this grouping of buffs just makes me think Zoo Light's going to be very good. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so going on to card nerfs, we're talking about Worm Breath. Damage reduced from 6 to 5. I'm sad they nerfed this because honestly, 6 damage for 4 mana seems reasonable. Yeah, it seems reasonable. But I completely understand they want to nerf Worm Breath for the face damage that it can do to magic. It also serves as a way for removal in certain cases. I like this, but Yeah, it makes sense. Because when Worm Breath is at 6 mana, it can destroy anything at that mana point. So, like, anything really. It can destroy Pyramid Warden, it can destroy, like, even some 5 mana cards. It can destroy some 5 mana cards with 5 damage as well, but you get the picture, right? Less damage. And I guess that's okay. I'm a little sad though, because in Hearthstone, there's a card called Fireball that is also 4 mana and deals 6 damage, right? And what's weird, what's a little weird in Gods Unchained is that I still think they're trying to find the optimal damage price points in the mana. What am I trying to say? Optimal damage in the mana price point. There we go. Because when you look at like mana price points in a game, there's usually like a standard, right? Like when you look at 1 damage spells, or when you look at 1 mana spells, like what's the average damage that they do? In Gods Unchained, it's 2, you know. In Hearthstone, when you look at 2 mana spells, the average is like 3, right? But in Gods Unchained, the gold standard is 4. That kind of stuff. I mean, you can run 2 mana spells that deal 3 damage, like that mana spell. That's a 2 mana spell in Magic. That's a pick one. I'm losing these names. But anyways, you get the point, right? So I think Gods Unchained is still trying to find that like sweet spot in the 4 mana damage price point range. I think that maybe they're committing to this 5 damage mark, but in return, that makes a couple of things. It's an interesting to evaluate. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and move on. It's an understandable nerf for Worm Breath. I love Magic, so when Magic cards get nerfed, I get a little sad on the inside. Cool. Laylord Hatchling. Okay, mana cost increase. Change mana cost from 8 to 10. Change text from each turn this creature's mana cost to set this creature's mana cost to 8 minus the number of cards in your hand. Roar. Deal 4 damage. To each turn, set this creature's mana cost to 10 minus the number of cards in your hand. Deal 4 damage. All right. Mana cost increased from 8 to 10. This is understandable. 8 was a pretty big stat buff, honestly. You'd be able to get this down to 0 mana really easily, and it just do a lot. So you deal 4 damage. It's a 3/3 for 0 mana. That's pretty good. So it's understandable for sure. Cool. Next up, we have Rune Dasp. Stats to increase, deadly removed. Change stats from 1/1 to 2/3. Change text from deadly afterlife. Both players unlock a mana lock. To afterlife. Both players unlock a mana lock. Yeah, this card was pretty busted, not gonna lie. It's just a better Fanatic of Kanoom, plus it serves as a 1-for-1 trade pretty much automatically if you can trade it through combat. And the dev team does make sense, or the game design team makes sense in this, where, you know, the Half-Life Ruined Ass combo was too big of a threat to ignore. It's just a powerful thing to include in a deck like Board Wipe Death, honestly. Like, you play Ruined Ass, you ramp up to your faster cards, but then you play Half-Life on the Ruined Ass, and you destroy your opponent's threats, and you get to ramp again. So, makes sense. Okay, cool. Next up, we have Parthene Recruiter. Change text. Change text from when a character is healed. Summon a 2/2 Acolyte 2 once per turn. Summon a 2/2 Acolyte after a character is healed. So, I wanted to shout out, because we did a recent video, yesterday's Market Watch video, we talked about Tithe Collector, and this is the 2 mana 1/3 that healed every time you summoned a monster, or healed your character every time you summoned a monster. So this made sense why there was a buyout, because it went infinite with Parthene Recruiter, and I wanted to shout out Kale Reinhardt for pointing that out in our video yesterday. So thanks, Kale, appreciate that. But yeah, it makes sense why they do this. Even though it goes infinite, yeah, that makes sense. Because if you go turn 2 Tithe Collector, and then, you know, you go turn 3 Parthene Recruiter and the Tithe Collector survives, you can have a board full of 2/2s as early as your opponent's turn 3. So that's a little too much to deal with. So it makes sense. Cool. Crystal Rain. I'm so sad. Mana cost increase. Change mana from 4 to 5. Really? But I mean, I guess it makes sense. If they're going to bring this back to 5 mana, though, they should bring back the 4C1 effect. Because I think at 4 mana, at 5 mana, the 4C effect wasn't too impactful, right? It's just a straight up nerf now. Cool. We have Faithbreaker. Ah, yes. Strength reduced from, what is it? 4/4 to 1/4? That sucks. Yeah, so 5 mana, 1/4. When this god takes damage, this creature gains 1/1. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I like that. But I mean, it makes sense due to the fact that how accessible it is to deal 2 damage to one god, each god with 1 effect, or deal a damage to each god with 1 effect in the death class. That makes sense because you have cards like Bonfly, you have cards like Soulburn, Desecrated Shrine, even. Yeah, so reducing the Faithbreaker, this is a very preemptive nerf, but man, it kind of sucks because I don't think a lot of people were able to test this card out, really. But I really like that card. I wish they kept it at the 4/4 price point, but I can see why. 3/3 would be reasonable. Right, because then you play Faithbreaker on turn 5 at 5 mana. Sorry, let me speak into the mic. You play Faithbreaker at turn 5, 5 mana, and then if it's a 3/3, it's not bad, right? Because then you have what, 5 mana, 5/5. You know, that could be easy to deal with, but I can understand. That's partly the reason why Mooncraze Cyclops was nerfed, if I remember correctly. Cool, moving on. Mana Garmer. I think that name is really fun to say. After this creature attacks, refresh 1 mana instead of after this creature attacks, refresh 3 mana. Makes sense why they did this. Refreshing 3 mana after it attacks. Also, it changing from a 4/3 to a 3/4 made it more survivable, or increased its survivability. So it makes sense why they wanted to reduce the effect. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's not too crazy anymore. This card would be insane if it had its old effect. Cool. Moving on to the next card, we have Screams in the Night. Mana cost increase. Change from 2 mana to 3 mana. So draw 2 creatures. If one of them is another, draw another. Yeah, we covered this in yesterday's Market Watch. So this card is still going to be good. 3 mana, draw 2 cards for 3 mana. Not only that, it's specific, so you draw 2 creatures for 3 mana. That's very good. It's going to be a must include in Control Deception if that becomes a thing. Control Sleep Deception. Because then you get to get if you draw another, you get to get another, right? That's what it is? Yeah, so you draw 2 creatures, and then you get to draw another creature. So you could potentially draw 3 cards for 3 mana, and that's very good value, in my opinion. And in Sleep Deception in particular, there are 2 cards that are going to be nethers. It's the 7 mana 8/6 that deals sleep to your opponent's 3 strongest creatures and gives them burn +2, which is a pretty good card in my opinion, and Demogorgon. So yeah, Board Wipe Death is probably going to be dethroned as like the universal control deck. It's probably going to be dethroned by Deception Sleep. That's going to be a hot take, my opinion, but that's how I feel because there's so much sleep support that's coming out for Deception, and this card in particular is going to make it ultra consistent to get your Demogorgon and whatever that other sleep creature is called, right? So watch out for this card. And then you have things like That Which Aches, which is also another, if I'm not mistaken. So then you have That Which Aches, and then you have Thought Siphon, which is a 0 mana spell. So turn 6, you literally play That Which Aches into Thought Siphon. If you can play double Thought Siphon, you're set, right? And then you just go to Fatigue against your opponent, and when your opponent runs out of cards, you win. Pretty much, right? Because you have so much sleep, you have so many ways to deal with your opponent's threats. It's going to be a thing. So watch out for this card. I think 3 mana is still really good. It's a good deal for this card still. I would also watch out for that buff, or I would also watch out for it to be nerfed, because it seems like this card has been on the radar on the devs side for a while. Watch out. If you invest in this card, watch out. Cool. Next up, we have Ronalyn Sparrow, health reduced, changed from 2/2 to 2/1. Man, why are they nerfing all the fun cards? Look, Ward hidden for 1 turn, 2/1. Makes it all right. Yeah. I could see why, because it's a 2. Like, honestly, it was a 2/2 with Ward and hidden. That's so much value for 1 mana. Like, if it's a 2/1, it's less value, less survivability, still can get hit by things like, that random god power in nature, but the fact that it has Ward gives it more survivability than most 1 health minions, right? So still a good card. I'm sad they made it a 2/2, because this would have been broken in Hidden Deception. Cool. Next up, we have Sound of Drums. Mana cost increase, changed from 3 mana to 4 mana. Sound of Drums was give 2 strength to your Vikings. Yeah, that makes sense. 3 mana just seemed too cheap for a buff card. Like, you could literally summon 2 Vanguard Axomans on turn. With 5 mana, you summon 2 Vanguard Axomans and then play this card. It's 2 4/2s for 5 mana, which isn't bad. With Blitz, by the way. But, I mean, Vikings just swarm, right? So you can definitely play a crap ton of cards and get your mana's worth for Sound of Drums. So it makes sense why they increased it to 4 mana. It was just too powerful. Penthesilian Warrior, health reduced, change stats from 2/3 to 2/2. All right, what is this card? Oh yeah, Roar, give 1/1 to the strongest other friendly Amazon. That makes sense, because it's 2 mana. It's basically a 2 mana 1/1, or a 2 mana 3/3, right? Worth of stats, because it's a 2/2 body, but then it gives 1/1 to whatever friendly Amazon you have. So yeah, it makes sense. If it was a 2/3, it would be a 2 mana 3/4, and that is way above the mana curve or the mana price point for the 2 mana cards. Cool. So now we're going on to the card changes. First up, we have Prayer of the Desperate. As I slowly check my audio. Cool. Just wanted to make sure that's a thing. Cool. Awesome. I'm telling you guys, me fucking up the audio is my worst fear. Excuse my French, but yeah, me messing up my audio or recording, going over a whole video and having my audio muted, worst fear ever. That's happened to me a couple of times for the market watches. That is tough. Anyways, because those videos are like an hour long. Okay, moving on. Prayer of the Desperate. Mana cost increase, condition removed. Change mana cost from 4 to 5. Change text from each of your creatures with strength 2 or less gets 2/2 to each of your creatures gets 2/2. Okay, so this is still a good card. I'm sad that it's now at 5 mana because it just worked. No, maybe it didn't. But I mean, it's just more expensive. I like lower curve decks, so but it makes sense why 2/2, no condition, so it's unconditional now. You can play this on any type of board, which is good. Honestly, this is still playable in Zoolite. You're not going to see it go away anytime soon. If anything, it's just more of a finisher now. And even at the 4 mana price point, right? You're already running cards like what? Highboard Knight. You're running CERN. You're running the new 2/5 legendary that makes your opponent's cards cost 2 more mana. Yeah, that's still, it's a good deal for 5 mana for sure. So this is still going to be a linchpin in Zoolite decks. Next up, we have City Planner. Decoupled from core set card Rampart. Change text from Roar, summon 2 1/4 Ramparts to Roar, summon 2 1/4 City Walls. New child card using Rampart art. City Wall, 1/4 frontline, can attack. Team says, to prevent any potential future card changes to Rampart, not that we're planning any, from affecting City Planner, we've decoupled the cards and created a new uncollectible called City Wall that is a reprint of Rampart for City Planner to summon. Understandable. City Planner is a good card. Decoupling it Rampart gives them more design space to like mess around with Rampart if they need to in the future. They're not planning any, but you never know. They are pushing structure magic still, so we have to be on the lookout for any developments within that metagame deck. It's not a metagame deck, but within that deck space. Cool. Then we have bug fixes. Yay! Seems to be a lot of bug fixes, so I'm glad the team is working very hard on all of these bug fixes. I think that, it's very hard to balance a game, and it's very hard to fix it, right? So there are so many things that can go wrong, especially in a TCG. Like, there are so many things, so many different interactions, so many different permutations of, things happening, that it's impossible to launch it perfectly, right? So what we can ask for as game players or just players of the game is, hey, we have a dedicated development team that is working on improving the game steadily and going for the long-term success, right? And that's what we want as a player base. We want long-term success, especially if we're into these cards. So shout outs to the dev team. Thank you for doing such a great job. And yeah, keep up the good work. Okay, so closing thoughts on everything. I'm sad they're nerfing the powerful cards, not gonna lie, because it's fun to play powerful cards, but at the same time I understand why that is a thing, because for people that don't have access to these cards, it could be really devastating to die to a card that you don't have, right? That's partly why free-to-play players complain about Demogorgon, Apocalypse Now, Board Wipe Death, right? Even though experienced players are able to navigate those matchups a little more effectively, but it's partly because they have the collection too. That's why free-to-play players, I really agree that the direction devs are going, making the game more making the game more fun for free-to-play players. So I'm excited for them to continue on that path. Although I am sad they nerfed the powerful cards, it's still a good thing. Don't get me wrong. What I think about these buffs, Zoo Light looking very spicy. Not gonna lie. I'm excited to see what comes out. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Magic's still going to be good. I actually think that these nerfs are minimal. Like, Laylord Hatchling and Wormbreath are, they're powerful in itself, but they're also... There were Magic decks working in the meta before this that didn't rely on Wormbreath and Laylord Hatchling, so I'm excited to see what else happens, but these are good nerfs, not gonna lie. Rundas, Death is... there's still a lot more room for exploring in the metagame right now. It's only been a week and a half since the core set refresh was released, and we've only seen one weekend rank, really. And we didn't even see any optimized list whatsoever, so it's still too early in the game to really make a judgment on what the top decks are, because honestly, we probably need a bigger sample size, right? Give us a month, give us like 4 to 6 weeks, honestly. But it's good that they're preemptively nerfing some of these cards that they think will be more powerful. The devs they do their homework. That's pretty much it. And they see all the data that we, the players, do. So, I'm really happy with these nerfs, and I'm excited to see where the metagame develops. With that being said, thanks for tuning in, y'all. Have a great morning, and tell your loved ones you love them. Yeah. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.